Hi, my name's Marissa. And if you've ever known what it's like to be invisible in your own family, to give and still never be enough, then you'll understand exactly what I'm about to share. You know how people say family is everything? I used to believe that. I held on to it like a mantra. Through school, through part-time jobs, through all the nights I cried myself to sleep after my mom brushed off my pain and my dad looked right through me like I wasn't even there. I told myself, they love me. They just don't know how to show it. But the day I hit rock bottom, desperate and scared out of my mind, and they turned me away without even blinking, that was the moment something inside me broke. And from those broken pieces, I built something they never saw coming. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the beginning. The part of the story where I still believed in them. I grew up in the kind of family where love had strings attached. I was the older sibling by 5 years, and from as early as I could remember, my parents always made it clear that my younger brother, Sean, was the center of the universe. Don't get me wrong, he wasn't a bad kid. But the way they treated him, it was like he could do no wrong. I, on the other hand, had to earn every crumb of affection. Straight A's, expected, helping with chores without being asked, required, covering for Sean when he wrecked the neighbor's garden with his BB gun. My responsibility dropped by the time I was 14. I knew my role. Be the fixer. Be the one who doesn't complain. Be the one who makes everything okay. So I worked. I studied. I got into a solid college on scholarship, juggled a part-time job, and even sent money home when Dad lost his job during the pandemic. Never mind that I was barely scraping by myself. I remember one specific call. Sean had crashed his old bike, and they wanted to get him a new one, but things were tight. So wired them $300 from my savings, the money I had set aside for textbooks and groceries. My mom said, "You're such a good daughter." That was it. No, thank you. No. Do you have enough for yourself? But I held on to that one sentence like it meant something. Like maybe it was proof they loved me in their own weird way. Then came last year. I was 26 and living alone in a tiny studio in the city, working full-time and taking evening classes to finish my graduate degree. Life was chaotic, but I was proud. I was building something for myself, something no one could take away. And then I got sick. At first it was just fatigue, then dizzy spells. Then one night I collapsed walking up the stairs to my apartment. I woke up in the hooked to machines I didn't understand, with a nurse calmly explaining that I had a rare autoimmune disorder that had been quietly attacking my organs for months. I blinked, disoriented. Is it treatable? Yes, she said, but the medication isn't cheap and you'll need time off work. My heart sank. My insurance barely covered anything and my job didn't offer paid leave. Rent was due in 2 weeks. I had maybe $400 in my checking account. So swallowing my pride, I called my parents. I remember sitting on the edge of the hospital bed, the plastic IV line tugging at my arm, listening to the phone ring. My dad picked up. I tried to keep my voice calm, but it cracked as I explained what was happening. "Dad, I need help. Just a little. Maybe $1,000 just to cover the medication and a week or two of rent until I can get back on my feet. Please." There was a long pause. "You know, Marissa," he said in that cold, calculating tone he used when he wanted to lecture me. "We told you to keep a better emergency fund. It's not our job to bail you out." I was stunned. "I'm not asking you to bail me out. I've never asked for anything." "Exactly," he said. "You've always been independent. You'll figure it out. Besides, we're helping Sean with some things right now." I felt my stomach drop. "What things?" "Just some expenses. He's looking at a new car. His broke down last week. We might co-sign a loan." A car. They were getting him money for a car while I was lying in a hospital bed, praying I wouldn't lose my apartment or my life. They were buying Sean a car. I didn't say another word. I just hung up. I don't even remember crying right away. It was like my body went numb. The betrayal was so deep it bypassed tears. The nurse walked in a few minutes later and must have seen something on my face because she just squeezed my hand and said, "Whatever it is, you're stronger than it." And she was right, because that moment, that absolute silence from the people who were supposed to protect me ignited something I'd buried long ago. It was time to stop waiting for their approval, time to stop proving my worth. Time to become someone they couldn't ignore. Over the next few weeks, I clawed my way back. I applied for emergency medical grants, picked up remote freelance gigs from my hospital bed, and leaned on classmates and coworkers who, shockingly, showed me more kindness than my own blood ever had. Slowly, I got better. Stronger. I moved out of the studio and into a shared space with a supportive roommate, finished my degree, landed a high-paying remote job in tech that gave me freedom and financial security. And all the while, I cut them off. No birthday calls, no texts, no updates. I went radio silent until one day, almost 9 months later, I got a message from my mom. "Hey, honey, hope you're well. Just wondering if you'd be interested in helping out your brother. He's had some car troubles again and could really use a little help getting back on the road. Family sticks together, right?" I stared at the screen, stunned. No mention of my illness. No, how are you? Just money, like I was their emergency fund now. I didn't respond right away. I wanted to say everything I bottled up, but I also wanted to do it right, to show them, not just tell them, what I'd become without them. And so I started to plan. I didn't respond to my mother's message. Not for a day. Not for a week. And when I finally did, it wasn't with words. It was with silence. That was the first part of my plan. Make them feel the absence of my usefulness. The absence of my good daughter instincts. The version of me that would have jumped to help Sean again and again, without question. That version of me had died in that hospital bed. But the new me, she had patience. She had goals. She had a strategy while they were out there scrambling for new ways to fund my brother's shiny dreams. I was working 12-hour days at my new tech position, stacking every paycheck into savings, investing aggressively, and building a side hustle in project automation consulting. I was finally doing what I'd spent my whole life helping others do. Solve their messes, but now I was doing it for companies that actually paid me what I was worth. I was quiet for months. And during that silence, something beautiful happened. Stopped needing their approval. I stopped looking at my phone, hoping for a kind message. I stopped dreaming about maybe someday they'll see me. Instead, I started building my future like a fortress. By the time my side business started pulling in more than my full-time salary, I realized I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving. Financially, emotionally, and mentally, I was becoming untouchable, which is exactly when they came crawling back. It was sometime in early March when I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't pick up until I heard my father's voice. "Marissa, your mom and I have been trying to reach you." His voice was calmer than I expected, almost careful. "Yeah," I said flatly. There was a pause. "Your brother's been in a bit of a bind. He made some bad decisions with his credit, and he needs help. The dealership won't approve his loan for the new car, and we were wondering if you might co-sign." I actually laughed. I didn't mean to, it just came out. Let me get this straight. The same people who told me to learn to manage my finances better when I was hospitalized and couldn't pay rent are now asking me to co-sign for a car loan. "Don't be dramatic, Marissa," he snapped. "This is family. We help each other." I was quiet for a moment, then I said, "No, Dead silence. I waited a beat. You didn't help me. You turned your back when I was at my lowest. I owe you nothing. You're being selfish, he hissed. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, but instead of yelling back, I smiled. I smiled because I realized something profound. They weren't used to me saying no. They weren't used to me having power. I hung up without another word. That call changed everything. The next day, I took it a step further. I opened a new business account and incorporated my consulting agency under my own name. I upgraded my apartment, nothing flashy, but sleek, modern mine. And I posted a picture on social media for the first time in nearly a year. A soft-lit photo of my home office with a caption that said, "Built from rock bottom. Grateful, thriving, unstoppable." It wasn't tagged. It wasn't directed at anyone. But they saw it. Oh, they saw it. Not even a week later. I got a long, guilt-laced message from my mother. "Sweetheart, we've been worried about you. You didn't even tell us you moved. Your father may not always say the right thing, but we care. Sean's been having such a hard time, and we just wish we could all come together again as a family." It was almost laughable, but that's when I knew they needed something from me. And now I was going to give them exactly what they'd earned. My revenge out of anger. Not out of spite, but revenge that was deliberate. Cold. Surgical. It started with a polite reply. I wrote back to my mom's message like nothing was wrong. "Hi, Mom. I've been super busy, but I'm doing really well. Hope you and Dad are good. Let's catch up soon." The smiley face was intentional. A dash of sugarcoating. Make them think I was falling back into the sweet, agreeable version of me they were used to. A week later, I offered to meet them for lunch. We sat at a mid-level restaurant, just fancy enough to imply success, but not too fancy to scare them off. I wore a tailored blazer, minimalist jewelry, just enough elegance to throw them off balance. They looked older. Grayer. Especially my dad, who seemed to be studying me like I was some unfamiliar creature. So he finally asked after some small talk, "What exactly is it you're doing now?" "I run my own consulting firm," I said, sipping my tea. "You're your own boss." My mother blinked. "Yep, I help companies streamline their digital operations, then growing steadily. Just picked up a few international clients." Their eyes widened just a bit. They didn't say it, but I knew what they were thinking. "We underestimated her. Good. I smiled, pretending to be modest. "You always were good with tech stuff," Mom said, nudging my arm like we were best friends. That was her move, pretend like the past didn't happen, like I hadn't spent years screaming into a void. I played along. For now, because I knew something they didn't. A mutual acquaintance had recently told me that my dad's business, the one he ran with a few buddies from his younger days, was in trouble. Something about outdated systems, missed deadlines, a massive backlog. They needed help, and I had just the right bait. I waited another month, let the idea of me settle into their heads. Then, casually, I offered something small. "Hey, I noticed Dad's company website is still from 2009. I could do a quick audit for free. Just a small thing." He hesitated, pride thick in his throat. "That's not necessary." But I saw the flicker in his eyes. Greed. Curiosity. Eventually, he said, "Okay, I suppose a quick look couldn't hurt." So I did a basic website audit, found 5 major vulnerabilities, delivered it in a sleek, professional report with a few suggestions, just enough to impress him. And just like that, I was in. Over the next few weeks, I consulted on one thing, then another. Not as a daughter, as a contractor. I charged discounted rates on purpose. I wanted them to get used to me being helpful. I wanted them to feel like they had finally won me back. What they didn't know was that I was documenting everything. All their messy back-end operations. All the outdated systems, all the red flags they'd been ignoring. And then the final straw, I found proof they'd been underreporting employee hours to avoid paying benefits. A quiet form of wage theft. Illegal. Sloppy. I backed everything up. Every email. Every TIMSTAMP. Then I made one last, generous offer. I could overhaul everything. Build you a new system from the ground up. Fix the reporting issues. Streamline payroll. It'll take about 3 months. Dad was thrilled. He thought I was finally coming home. They paid my initial invoice. Then 2 more, until I had them right where I wanted them. And then, just before final implementation, I pulled the plug. Not just on the contract, on the entire system, because what they didn't realize was that every tool I had set up was under my license, not theirs. Every login, every script, every data migration pipeline mine. All completely legal, all covered under the signed agreements. They'd barely read. They tried to reach me the next day. 10 missed calls, 3 emails. Marissa, what the hell is going on? Call us back now. You can't just shut down the whole system. But I could, and I had, because when you treat your daughter like a disposable tool for 26 years, you don't get to be shocked when she learns how to use those tools to build herself a throne and leaves you in the rubble. Their business tanked within weeks. The chaos I'd briefly managed for them surged back tenfold. Projects were delayed. Clients dropped them. Their reputation took a hit in the local community. And without the good daughter to clean up after them, they had to face the mess they'd created all on their own. Sean, meanwhile, wrecked the used car they'd scraped together money to get him, still unemployed, still blaming everyone. But himself, I didn't reply to any of their new messages. Not even the one that simply read, "We're sorry." Because they weren't. They were just desperate, and I was finally free. I didn't block their numbers. That would have been too easy. I wanted them to sit in the discomfort of being ignored. To feel the silence they once handed me so easily when I was sick and begging for help. Instead of a call, I got a message from my mother a week later, long, rambling, full of guilt-laced memories and sugar-coated excuses. She wrote, "We've made mistakes, but we've always loved you. Families fight and fall apart sometimes, but we're still your parents. Please come home for Sunday dinner." Sunday dinner, as if all this could be fixed over a roast and some store-bought pie. As if we could rewind to when I was 15 and still pretending their neglect was love. I read the message once, twice, then deleted it. No response. And for the first time in my life, that silence didn't hurt. It felt like peace. I thought that would be the end of it. That they'd finally understand I wasn't coming back. That some people don't learn quietly. 2 months later, I was hosting a networking brunch at my new condo, white brick, open concept, modern appliances I used with pride when offering guests fresh brewed espresso and homemade pastries. A few startup founders were asking me about automation integrations. When my phone buzzed again. Sean. Again. I sighed and let it go to voicemail. But this time, he left a message. "Hey, sis. Look, I know things are kind of messed up between us, but I was wondering if you could help me get a job, something remote like you do, just until I get back on my feet. I'm not good with interviews, and I figured you'd understand." I let out a short, bitter laugh. Of course, when the bridge was reduced to ash, they all wanted to climb back over it. It was poetic, really. They had always made me feel like I was nothing compared to Sean, like he was their son and I was just an afterthought. But here he was now flailing, lost, and the only person he could turn to was the same sister he once mocked for being too uptight and trying too hard. I never replied, and a part of me thought maybe that's enough, but something still lingered in my chest, not revenge exactly. Something deeper, a sense that the story wasn't finished. that there was still one final card I hadn't played. I didn't want them to just suffer. I wanted them to understand. I didn't want to yell or scream or call them out online. That's never been my style. I wanted my life to be the answer to the question they never had the courage to ask: what would have happened if we had loved her properly? So I wrote them a letter, not angry, not emotional, just facts, a printed letter, on fine cream stationery, delivered through a courier. It read, "Dear Mom and Dad, I hope this letter finds you well. I want you to know that I'm not angry anymore, truly. I've had a lot of time and therapy to process the past, and I've reached a place of deep clarity. See, for years, I thought I was the broken one. I thought maybe if I worked harder, gave more, stayed quiet longer, I'd finally earn your love. That maybe your kindness was just waiting around the corner, and I just hadn't been worthy of it yet. But I was wrong. It wasn't me. It was you. You saw me not as your daughter, but as a tool, a resource, a background character in the Sean show. And I played the role so well that even when I was drowning, you handed me an anchor instead of a life vest. But that's over now. I don't need you to say sorry. I don't need you to change. I've built a life I'm proud of, a home full of light, a job that values me, a community that sees me. And I want you to live with the knowledge that you had a front row seat to the creation of something extraordinary and chose to turn your backs. You don't get to call it love now, and you don't get a seat at my table anymore. Marissa, I never heard from them again after that. Not directly anyway, but word got around. Small towns can't help themselves, I heard. Sean tried to start a small online reselling business. It tanked within weeks. He's now working part-time at an auto parts store. No degree, no real experience. Still blaming bad luck. My dad had to take out a loan to cover the penalties after I shut down their tech operations. The bank cut ties with his company after an audit. From what I heard, they're barely scraping by now, running on fumes and pride. And my mother? She still posts filtered photos on Facebook of family dinners with captions like, "Nothing more important than family." Usually with an empty seat at the table. I know what that seat's meant to represent, but it doesn't hurt anymore because I found other tables. Better ones. I recently got invited to speak at a national tech conference. I stood on stage in front of hundreds of people, CEOs, founders, students, and told the story of how I built my business from a hospital bed. Fueled by rejection and grit, I didn't name names, but I saw the impact in the room. I saw heads nodding. I saw tears in the eyes of young women who, like me, had once begged for crumbs from people who were supposed to protect them, and after the applause faded, I stood backstage, phone in hand, and opened the photo gallery. I found a picture I had taken nearly 2 years earlier, me in a hospital gown, pale, eyes sunken, trying to smile through the terror. And then I took a new picture. Me, now stronger, softer, standing on a stage built with my own hands. I put them side by side. Not as a comparison, but as proof. Proof that you can survive people who swore they loved you and still find a way to love yourself louder. That night, I poured a glass of wine, sat on my balcony, and watched the sun set over a city that once chewed me up and spit me out, and I whispered something to the wind. I'm proud of you. Not for the revenge. Not for the money, but for surviving. And in the quiet of that moment, I finally felt it. Closure. I thought I had closed the chapter, that the silence from my parents, the letter I'd sent, and the finality of that wedding toast had sealed everything shut. But sometimes life doesn't end stories with a clean period. It ends them with an ellipsis and a knock at your door. It was a Saturday afternoon. Rain tapping against the windows, the smell of lemon tea drifting through the apartment. I was curled on the couch reading when the knock came slow, deliberate. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door and felt the air. Leave my lungs, Dot. It was my mother. Her hair was frizzed from the rain, her mascara lightly smudged. But it wasn't the mess of her appearance that stunned me. It was her expression. Not anger, not entitlement, Dot, just exhaustion. And something close to shame. Can I come in? She asked, almost in a whisper. I said nothing for a long second, then stepped aside. She walked in slowly, glancing around. She didn't say it, but I could tell she was surprised. The place was beautiful. Soft-toned walls, hardwood floors, gold-trimmed light fixtures. It looked nothing like the life they used to mock me for chasing. I stood by the counter, arms crossed, waiting. She sat on the edge of the chair like she didn't know how to exist in the space. I don't know what I expected. She finally said, "But this is more than I ever imagined for you." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean more than you expected?" She winced. Yes, there was a long silence, and then she did something I'd never seen before. She cried, not dramatic. Sobbing. Just quiet, contained tears. I didn't come to beg. I know I don't deserve anything from you. I just needed you to know the truth about everything, about why we did what we did. I said nothing. I didn't trust her yet, but I let her speak. She told me that when I was born, Dad had just taken a massive financial hit on a business venture. They were scared, broke, and when Sean came along years later after they'd somewhat recovered, he became their chance to do things right. He was our second chance, she whispered, and we overcorrected. We poured everything into him because we couldn't bear to screw up again. But I wasn't a screw-up, I said, voice sharp. No, she said quickly, eyes wet. You were perfect. That was the problem. You never needed us, Marissa. You were always 5 steps ahead. We thought if we focused on Sean, we could balance things out. I shook my head, bitterness rising. You thought I didn't need you? I was 13, Mom. I needed you every damn day. She broke then, shoulders shaking, I know. And I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I didn't forgive her, Dot, not then. But I didn't throw her out either. Because in her pain, I saw something I hadn't expected, Dot, consequences, Dot, they weren't. Just suffering financially, Dot, they were finally feeling the emotional cost. 2, Dot, and that mattered. We talked for an hour. No screaming, no hugging. Just raw honesty. Before she left, she said, I know I can't fix this. I wanted you to know we do see you now. We see what we lost. As the door closed behind her, I stood frozen and something strange happened. Cried too, not out of grief, but out of release, Dot. It felt like letting go of a ghost I'd carried for too long. Still, one visit wasn't a miracle. It wasn't redemption, Dot. It was just the beginning of something new, fragile, unfamiliar. Dot. The next week, I received an unexpected email. Dot. It was from a legal firm in town. Subject line, property transfer, confidential matter. I clicked, confused. Inside was a formal letter stating that my grandmother's old home, the one I had played in as a child, the one I'd been banned from when I cut ties with my parents, was being transferred to me. Apparently, before she passed, my grandmother had quietly updated her will after learning how my parents treated me. Dot. The house wasn't massive, but it was valuable, historic, paid off, and it was mine. I drove to see it 2 days later. Walked through the creaky front door with the old iron handle and breathed in the smell of aged wood and memories. The place needed work, paint peeling, floorboards groaning, but it felt like home. A part of me had been waiting my whole life for someone to choose me, to say, you deserve something just because you exist. And somehow, Grandma had done that silently, without asking for praise or acknowledgement. I decided to renovate it, not flip it, not sell it, restore it. Dot. With care. And as I poured my time and creativity into each room, I realized something powerful. This house wasn't just a gift. Dot. It was a legacy dot one that I would now define dot. And so I made a decision. I opened. It upped out not to my family, but to women like me. Graduates aging out of the foster system. Young adults leaving toxic homes. Survivors rebuilding their lives. I started a nonprofit under the name Second Light. We gave them rooms, resources, job training, therapy, and something even rarer dignity within a year. We were housing 10 women at a time and for the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to give from abundance. Not obligation to build a family that chooses each other. One night, as I was repainting a bedroom with one of the girls, a bright, sharp, 19-year-old named Jayla, she asked me, "Why are you doing all this? You don't even know us." I smiled and dipped my roller in the soft pink paint because I used to be you, and someone should have helped me back then. So now I'm making sure someone helps you. She was quiet for a second, then said softly, "I'm gonna do this for someone else someday too." And that was it, the moment. I realized this wasn't just revenge it was revolution because sometimes the best revenge isn't proving people wrong, it's proving yourself right and building something so beautiful, so undeniably strong that even the people who once broke you can't look away. The word spread faster than I expected. Second Light had only been running for about a year, but the ripple effect was growing. Not just in the lives of the women we helped, but in the wider community, quietly, steadily, like water soaking through. Dry soil people started talking. Former teachers reached out, stunned by the story. Classmates I hadn't heard from since high school emailed me to say they were proud. Even 2 women I'd briefly known in college messaged, telling me they'd always suspected something wasn't right about how my family treated me, but didn't know how to help back then. It was strange. Being seen after so many years of shrinking myself to fit the cracks my family left behind. I was finally filling up space and not apologizing for it, but not everyone was happy. One day, I received an envelope in the mail no return address. Inside was a thin, folded sheet of paper torn from a notepad. The handwriting was unmistakable. Sean, you really think you're better than us now? Parading around like some saint while we're struggling. I hope you enjoy your charity house, Marissa. Guess you always liked being the victim. I stared at it, unmoved. There was a time when words like that would have wrecked me. When I would have read them again and again, looking for proof I'd deserved the treatment I got, but not anymore. I took the letter, lit a match, and watched it burn in my kitchen sink. Watched the ashes swirl like smoke ghosts. Like every lie they tried to trap me in. It was done. Or so I thought. A month later, I got a knock at the gate of Second Light. One of our new residents, a soft-spoken girl named Ivy, came to get me. "Hey, there's a guy outside. He says he knows you." I followed her to the gate, and there he was. Sean. Hair disheveled, skin sunburnt, eyes sunken from whatever mess he'd been living through. "I need to talk to you," he said. I didn't answer. Just stared at him, arms folded, blocking the gate. With my body. "Please," he added, voice cracking. "I'm not here to fight. I have nowhere else to go." It wasn't pity I felt. It was clarity. "Why here?" I asked. "Why now?" His mouth twisted. "Because I finally get it. I finally understand what you went through, and I know I messed up. But I can't undo it. I need help." "You think this is a shelter for failed golden boys?" I snapped, sharper than I meant. "This isn't a redemption house for men who only come crawling when life hits back." He looked down, shame flashing across his face. "I know. And I'm not asking for a place. I heard what you're doing here. I thought maybe I could volunteer, earn my way back. Somehow." It would have been so easy to slam the gate shut, but something in me hesitated, not out of kindness, not out of guilt. But because I saw an opportunity, not for him, for the truth. You want to help? I asked. Then be honest, publicly. He blinked. What do you mean? I mean, admit it, everything. What you did, what they did. Post it. Write it. Speak it, whatever. But don't you dare walk in here until you finally tell the truth about who you were and what you let them do to me. His face paled. I can't do that, he whispered. Then you're not ready, I said, voice cold. Because this place, it's built on truth. And I won't let you taint it with your half apologies. And I walked away. He didn't call after me. He just stood there, small and uncertain, watching the life I built stretch out behind me, just out of reach. 3 weeks passed. Then one morning, as I sipped coffee on the porch of Second Light, I saw a flood of messages pouring into our Instagram page. I opened one, then another. All were links. Sean had posted something. Video. My hands shook slightly as I pressed play. He was standing outside his rundown apartment, wearing a hoodie, shadows. Under his eyes, my name is Sean, he began. And I owe the world an apology. He didn't cry, didn't grovel, but he told the truth. He talked about how our parents always favored him, how they made me the scapegoat for every problem, how I gave money to help them and they turned me away in my hour of need. He admitted how he coasted through life on unearned support while I had to fight for every inch. I was handed everything and still felt entitled to more. He said, my sister wasn't just stronger, she was better. She built something without any of us, and I tried to shame her for it. That ends now. He ended the video with a quiet statement. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want to stop pretending it wasn't real. I sat there, stunned, not because it fixed anything, but because it finally named what had gone unnamed for decades. The next morning, I saw him again, standing outside the gate. I opened it slowly. You saw it? He asked. I did. And? I still don't trust you, I said. That's fair. But his eyes lifted. We're repainting the West Wing this weekend. You can carry buckets, no speeches, no compliments. Just work. He nodded, something humble flickering in his expression. And that's how he started. He scrubbed walls, hauled furniture, drove volunteers to appointments, never asked for praise. Just showed up. Again and again. It didn't make us siblings again, but it was something. And the residents, they watched him. They saw the before and after. They saw what growth looked like, even messy, overdue growth, and it gave them hope. One night, during a group dinner, one of the younger girls asked, why do you let him help if he hurt you? I thought for a moment, then said, because healing doesn't mean pretending the pain didn't happen. It means you don't let it poison you forever. He doesn't owe me change. He owes himself change. And they all nodded, silent, understanding, because in that house, surrounded by the soft noise of found family and chosen peace, we didn't measure people by their worst moments. We measured them by what they did next. The house felt different now, not just because the walls were freshly painted, or because the creaky floors had been sanded and refinished, but because it breathed differently. Every corner of Second Light was filled with life, real, loud, chaotic. Messy, beautiful life. Laughter echoed through the kitchen where 3 women were learning to cook for the first time. Music drifted from one of the bedrooms upstairs, soft and scratchy from an old radio. Outside, the garden we'd planted together was blooming bright, bursts of color erupting from the soil, like proof that healing was possible. It was hard to believe that just 2 years ago, this place had been dark and silent. Much like me, I was out on the front porch one morning, sipping coffee from my grandmother's old porcelain mug, when Ivy joined me. She was 19. Fierce, skeptical, brilliant in ways she didn't yet believe. She'd come to Second Light after surviving a violent home, and for months barely spoke above a whisper. But now, She was starting to bloom. You got a sec? She asked, biting her lip nervously. Always. She sat beside me, knees pulled to her chest. I got into the university program. She said, my heart skipped. You what? Ivy, that's incredible. She blushed and looked down. Yeah, you said I should apply even though I didn't. Think I'd get in. I figured, what's the worst that could happen? They say no? That's not worse than what I've already been through. I smiled. You're right. Rejection doesn't scare girls who've survived hell. She laughed at then. Her smile faded. I don't know how to say goodbye. My throat tightened. Then don't, I said. You're not leaving. You're expanding. That night, we had a farewell dinner for Ivy. Everyone made something small for the table, even Sean, who somehow learned how to make a perfect sweet potato pie and proudly told no one how. When Ivy stood to say goodbye, she said, "This place saved me." But more than that, it made me believe I could save myself. That line stayed with me. It was everything I had ever hoped this place would become. A seed of belief. After she left, I found myself walking through the house late at night, hands grazing the walls, hearing echoes of conversations that had changed lives. Women who had entered broken and left bold. Girls who had arrived terrified and left 10 feet taller. But one part of the house still remained untouched. The attic. It was mostly storage old boxes from my grandmother's estate, dusty trunks with faded photographs. I hadn't had the heart to sort through it. Until now. I climbed the creaky stairs one Sunday morning, sunlight filtering through the tiny attic window like a golden invitation. I opened a few boxes and found things I hadn't seen in decades. One was an old photo of me, maybe 6 years old, sitting on the porch steps with my grandmother. She had her arm around me, smiling into the sun like she knew somehow that I would carry her warmth forward one day. Underneath that photo was something unexpected. A sealed envelope. My name was written on it in her handwriting. Held my breath as I opened it. Inside was a letter. Simple, quiet, pure. My dearest Marissa, 8th. You're reading this, it means you found your way back here. I always knew you would. You were always meant for more than the world gave you. I saw the way your parents treated you. I wanted to say more when I was alive, but you know how this family is silent about the wrong things. You were never broken. Just surrounded by people. Too small to hold your light. This house is yours now. Not just the bricks and walls, but the heart of it. Fill it with whatever brings you joy. Fill it with people who see you. You've already done more than I ever dreamed. But I have a feeling you're just getting started. All my love. Grandma. I sat on the attic floor, tears slipping down my cheeks, not because I was sad, but because finally I felt whole. This woman, this quiet, observant woman had seen me even when I didn't see myself. She had believed in me. And in a way, she had built this refuge with me together. That's when the idea came. A second house, then maybe a third. Why stop here? Why not take Second Light national? There were thousands, millions of girls like Ivy, like me, like the women who passed through these rooms. What if this wasn't just a refuge? What if it was a movement? So I got to work. I reached out to every contact I had. Business partners, donors, social workers, reporters. I pitched them a vision. Safe homes. Real support. Dignity first healing. From coast to coast. And they believed me because I had proof, because I was the proof. By the end of the next year, we had secured funding to open 2 more locations, one in Chicago, one in Atlanta, staffed by former residents of Second Light who had completed their degrees and returned, ready to lead. We created a ripple. No a wave, and as that wave grew, something miraculous happened. My mother reached out again. This time, not for Sean. Not for her own guilt, but to ask how she could help. She had started going to therapy, alone. She didn't ask me to visit. Didn't beg for forgiveness, Dot, she said. I want to start by showing up, quietly, as a volunteer, if you'll allow me. I didn't say yes right away, Dot. It took time, Dot, but eventually I let her start showing up once a week. Cleaning, organizing, folding laundry, making tea. We didn't speak much. But one day, I caught her laughing with one of the residents. Her hands full of towels, her eyes soft. I thought, maybe this is what healing looks like. Not forgetting Dot, but choosing what comes next. Dot. Sean eventually found his own path. Started working in trauma recovery programs for young men, using his own story as cautionary truth. We don't talk daily, but we're no longer strangers. There's something there now. Dot. Respect. Dot. Maybe even a slow-growing kind of love in me. I wake up every morning with a sense of peace I never knew I could have, not because the past doesn't hurt anymore, but because it no longer defines me. I turned every rejection into a doorway, every silence into a mission, and every scar into a map. One evening, I stood outside the original second lighthouse, watching the lights flicker on room by room as the women inside settled in for the night, and I realized this wasn't just revenge. This was legacy. This was justice reshaped into compassion. This was the life I deserved and chose to build myself. The invitation arrived in a soft ivory envelope with my name written in delicate script. It was from a woman named Grace, my old college roommate. She was getting married in the countryside and wanted me to be a guest of honor. Not a bridesmaid, not someone in the background, but a speaker. She wanted me to give the toast. I wouldn't have gotten through school without you. Her handwritten note read, "You believed in me when no one else did. Come celebrate with the people who love you." That one sentence hit me harder than I expected. The people who love you, not tolerate you, not use you, not guilt trip you. Love. So I went. I wore a midnight blue dress and heels that clicked like confidence against the cobblestone chapel path. I arrived alone, but I wasn't lonely. I walked past smiling strangers, glowing lanterns, and soft music, all floating in the kind of joy that doesn't need to be earned. As the ceremony ended and the reception began, someone tapped my shoulder. I turned around expecting a friend or a waiter, but instead I froze. It was my aunt. My mother's older sister. I hadn't seen her in years. She looked older, but her eyes still held that same spark of quiet wisdom she had when I was little. When she'd sneak me cookies at family parties and whisper, "You're not invisible, sweet girl." "I see you, Marissa," she said warmly. "You look radiant." I tried to keep my voice steady. "What? How did you—" "Grace and I go way back," she said with a wink. "Small world." I nodded slowly, unsure how to respond. She looked at me, really looked. "Your parents don't know you're here, do they?" "No," I said softly, "and I want to keep it that way." She gave a small nod, then placed something in my hand. A photograph. It was an old one. Me, maybe 10 years old, standing on the porch of our family house, clutching a trophy from a spelling bee. In the background, my mother was turned away. My father's arms were crossed. "You always had to shine by yourself," my aunt whispered. "But you did. You still do." I blinked back tears. Then I folded the photo and tucked it into my clutch, not as a wound, but as a reminder of how far I'd come. That night, under the stars, I gave my toast, not just to Grace, but to all the daughters, sons, and silent survivors who had to raise themselves in the shadows of people who never really saw them. I said, sometimes family isn't who shares your name. It's who shows up for you. It's who says, "I believe in you," when you're at your lowest. And sometimes the hardest but most powerful thing you can do is walk away from the people who taught you to doubt your worth so you can finally become the person you were always meant to be. The crowd erupted in cheers. But in the back, I saw her, my aunt, holding a glass, eyes glistening, nodding once. I smiled, Because in that moment, I wasn't the forgotten daughter. I wasn't the backup plan or the fixer or the invisible one. I was me, Dot, and that was more than enough.